finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo and no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
Happy Thanksgiving as you listen to this episode today on this Thursday, November 24th, 2022.
And I think May is thankful that I've put on my other glasses that actually almost make me look smarter but I don't know that that's possible. For those of you not watching, just listening, I'm actually wearing a flannel shirt. So I'm going with the logger sexual look, which, is popular in Oregon.
You're kind of Christmassy, and I'm wearing my fall attire.
Once we trip over into December, I will be bringing out ugly sweaters. So that is something to look forward to. And you can move over to Rumble because they won't get taken off because some of them are not exactly, none of them are really acceptable in any sort of social context. But I'll share them with the rest of the world because that's what we do.
Well, today's episode's jam-packed full of stuff, more so than your Thanksgiving turkey.
Oh, boy.
And so we've got a lot of fun stuff to share with you. First off, though, we are coming up on our 100th episode next week. So we are planning we are going to be featuring that on Instagram and our Facebook pages.
There's been something I've been testing out called Magic Mind, which is actually a little, it almost comes in like shooters of different adaptogen and nootropic mushrooms. Okay. Which is not magic mushrooms. It's, it's not a misnomer, but that's exactly what it is. And ashwagandha, turmeric, and all these things.
You butchered already. Ashwagandha, honey.
Okay. Well, whatever. Mahatma Gandhi. It's great. It makes you calm like Mahatma Gandhi, which would be good, I think. I've been using it in the morning. It kind of gives you this focused feeling but you're not jittery like just drinking coffee. So it's actually pretty cool stuff. If you want to check it out, go to magicmind.co. They have all the details there, a bunch of testimonials and so forth. And I've been doing it for over a month.
And what does it do for you?
It's like that extra focus it's like you had an extra cup of coffee without any of the coffee effects, which I can't drink 2 cups of coffee in the morning because I get jittery and don't feel very good and kind of upsets my stomach and whatnot. But I've been doing this. I usually get up in the morning and I read for a couple hours. So I'll drink this, have 1 cup of espresso, read for an hour or 2, and then go work out because I like working out fasted. And I don't know if it's helping my workouts, but it sure feels like it is. But interesting stuff.
You seem to really respond well to it. So it's the key ingredients are the new, I call it she term, is the adaptogens, the nootropics, and it's got honey and matcha in it as well, which gives it that green color and interesting flavor, I must say.
Man.
But it's really supposed to help with energy, decrease stress, help with inflammation too, I think, and oxidation. So if you need some more focus to help with your creativity, but you don't want to pound back the caffeine because of its effects, try out Magic Mind.
Yes.
See how you like it. It works really good for Tim. I did try only 1 shot. Didn't notice anything, but I didn't use it as
you really need
prescribed
as
recommended.
You need 5 days minimum to kind of have it start doing its thing.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed. But anyway, something to think about.
And meanwhile, we want to give a shout out and recommend our sponsor this month, which not this month, but this week, I would say. They've been sponsoring us monthly, which is New Leaf Hyperbarics in Eugene, Oregon. It's newleafeugene.com. Hyperbaric therapy is something Tim and I have tried out and really love. And the benefits of oxygen therapy are huge. It's non-invasive therapy that strengthens your body basically from, the inside out. It works by saturating your body with oxygen to promote healing and growth, and it's known to benefit people from all age groups and lifestyles, for professional athletes to people recovering from illness, surgery. And so basically the hyperbaric chamber involves, getting inside a tent like chamber with high flow oxygen. And you can combine some infrared therapy to some troubled spots if you're having specific injuries or pain, whether it's orthopedic, post-surgery recovery. But basically, it's a really amazing way that you can help recover from everything from COVID to surgery, etc. So check out their page. I know that actually the day after Thanksgiving, they're having a special, and you can buy numerous, anywhere from 1 to, I mean, you could buy a whole year's worth of therapies at discounted prices. So you can check out their website and give them a call. newleafeugene.com is the website, and they're located in Eugene, Oregon.
And strangely, when I go into the chamber at New Leaf, I usually just wear a fig leaf. I wonder why they're not letting me back. I thought that would be extra attractive.
Well, maybe it is to some, but apparently not there at that location.
I've been kicked out of better places.
I'm glad we didn't feature that on the video that we put on Instagram. Just, I don't know.
Yes,
maybe some people would be wishing
we do need to go back though, because yesterday I was running and all of a sudden it felt like somebody took a hatchet to my left calf.
I know, and I was The joys of getting older. And then there's me, and we won't even start on today's episode about all my problems. So check them out as well. Well, today what we wanted to do was really just the two of us really talk about Thanksgiving and make this a Thanksgiving episode that's not filled with a bunch of corny jokes. Get it? You're not even laughing.
Filled with corny jokes.
Anyway.
Like Friday morning's turds.
So this year we're going to talk about
chock full of corn.
Not just what we're thankful for, Tim, but Thanksgiving, really what it means, because everybody likes to share at the Thanksgiving table, what they're thankful for. But it's not just Thanksgiving Day that you should be thankful. You need to, I think, really change how your attitude is on a regular basis. And that is more along the lines of what we call gratitude. So let's talk about the difference between Thanksgiving versus gratitude. Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to guess because you actually have a definition that some psychiatrist or somebody came up with.
The psychiatrist, I think. Well, Wikipedia could come up with it, but
which will be 100% accurate. So my guess is gratitude is more of an attitude, a way of being, whereas Thanksgiving is actually. Thankfulness is you're thankful because something happened. So I would equate it the difference between joy and happiness. You win the lottery, you have a child, those things make you happy because they're happenings, they're events. You just miss getting in a massive car wreck and you skate through it and you're thankful you didn't get in a car wreck. Whereas gratitude is an attitude. That's
right. You nailed it. And you can't have gratitude without, a good attitude, or vice versa. You can't have a good attitude without gratitude. So.
Right. But man, that rhyming kind of cliche stuff literally makes me throw up in my mouth.
You're not thankful for the rhyming. So yeah, Thanksgiving, they would say is a reaction to something that happens. Exactly like you said. It's your birthday. You get, your favorite toy, someone gives you a gift, something happens. So it's a reaction to it, usually an event or not always an event, but something exciting that happens, or expressing thanks for things. Whereas gratitude is a state of being, basically mindset. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Which okay, so it brings it reminds me of the it must have been about 1980 when Steve Martin had his Thanksgiving special, and he's like, things I'm thankful for. He starts out and he goes, I'm thankful that my sex organs are in my pants and not on display at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So that would be something to be thankful for, but not necessarily gratitude.
Well, I think it could probably be both. A permanent sense of being. I don't even remember that episode. What was that?
Oh, he had 2 TV specials. One was a Thanksgiving one, and I can't remember if one was a Halloween one, but they were really, really creative, and he does his usual Steve Martin stuff, which was really dry. And, he'd have some sketches where these terrorists came into a 7-Eleven to buy plutonium. No, the plutonium's behind the desk. Don't you know it's behind the counter? We never keep the plutonium on. I mean, it's just like completely insane.
It's super funny. I do remember the Christmas ones where he's making his Christmas wish for the world. There you go. I don't know. So yeah, gratitude is and I bring this up mostly because it's really easy we sit around the Thanksgiving table, and a lot of people don't, I think, reflect on things on a regular basis. We're so busy with life, and Thanksgiving is a time of gluttony, feasting, hanging out with family, rest, hopefully for some people, relaxation. And that's when people can sit back, share what they're thankful for. When I think for a lot of people, that does translate into things they're grateful for and gratitude, but not always. And so I guess what I wanted to encourage people to do was, when you're sitting around stuffing yourself with your turkey, stuffing, Thanksgiving, desserts, pumpkin pie, or whatever you're into, imbibing on all those brews and watching football and the Santa Claus Macy's parade, to start to just think about a regular basis what you're thankful for daily, and then how can you go forward throughout the year and remember those things instead of just on Thanksgiving weekend.
Well, it's interesting because they've studied this, and
the why
for whatever, put as much faith as you want to in psychological studies, because they're very, very difficult to kind of ascertain. But I still think that there's a tremendous amount of value in them, because it at least tries to help us understand ourselves and some of these questions, which are really interesting. And so the big question is, there's no question that people that live a grateful life have less depression. They have, better overall mental health. They have better overall physical health. And then the question, of course, is that because people that just function better are obviously more grateful? Or is it the fact that they're grateful? I mean, there's a chicken and egg thing, and it's really impossible to understand. But they have done some studies where people have practiced gratitude to see what happens. And it's actually really interesting, because essentially what it comes down to is you have to write it down or it doesn't count. So, and it takes a while. Like it's very interesting to see when they uncover and interview people about, what they did and what they thought about and how it changed their life. And some of these studies were actually really interesting, because they had people write down what they're grateful for every day. And then they had other people like just write down what was like whatever a random thought was. And then like a third group, which was, writing down exactly how they feel and really kind of, trying to figure out their feelings.
More like an emotional journal.
Yeah. And it was really interesting, because people that did the best were the ones that just focused on things that they were grateful for. Right. And that's always been one of my kind of BS callings on psychology is, you go to a psychologist and they, you talk about your family, you talk about your upbringing and all that. And I think that there's some utility in that. And if there's unresolved traumas, clearly there is. But at the same time, why are you always going back to the dumpster when you should be, focusing on like taking the garbage out? Like, isn't that the whole goal, is to take the garbage out and to get over whatever is bothering you? And, and I've noticed, just in self reflection in this last 2 years, how I've become more of the curmudgeonly pissed off guy. And so what harm would there be in writing down things I'm grateful for every day and just kind of changing focus? Because the focus has been really bad. Like when I look at, how much research I've done on COVID, how far down the rabbit hole I've gone, some of it has been really good, because I've learned a lot about, virology and vaccines and et cetera. But at the same time, so much of it is just profoundly negative. And regardless of which side of the debate you take, it's profoundly negative.
Well, that's what I was just about to say, is when you do that self reflection, looking back, digging up the past, rehashing the stuff that was the stumbling blocks. I guess you can also look at what was positive, but usually it seems to involve the negative, or correct? And so when you're going through those traditional therapies and it's like looking back to your childhood trauma or what happened, or why you feel negative and what you got you there, it really is focusing on the negative. And I think that at some point, for effective therapies for certain things, you need to do that so people can kind of go, okay, I get what this stems from, but you can't stay stuck in that place.
Well, right. But it's exactly what we've talked about before, especially with your journey coming through, sexual abuse. What was there was a solution to that problem. Now, it's not a solution that people are going to be imminently willing to accept, but it is the solution to trauma, which is forgiveness. And that's not easy for people to understand. But if you are unforgiving of any trauma, that trauma is going to own part of you, or in some cases, all of you. That's the nature. So,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's just forgiving yourself for being whatever you were and moving. I mean, isn't the goal to move on? And
of course it is. I think I'm just thinking back to actually one of my favorite Peloton rides that I've done, which is one with Christine Derkele. She does really, you get like a therapy session while you're on the bike with her a lot of times. But there's this one that, it's just like a reflection ride. She calls these things where you look back on something, could be anything from something small to something bigger. I mean, how in deep are you going to get on a Peloton ride? But really looking back and it comes back to acknowledging what happened, how that sort of the feelings associated with that and maybe what you struggle with. But a lot of people just don't acknowledge it. They kind of, that happened, I don't want to think about it, stuff it away, and they can't move on. And even I think if you try to just stay positive and have gratitude, and somehow it's like that garbage is still sitting there in the, in what I mean, saying in the house, stinking away. You have to actually hunt it out and go, yeah, okay, that garbage stinks. There it is. This is how it smells. This is how it makes me feel. You can't ignore it. And then you need to, you're right, package it up. And she would literally say in the ride, okay, acknowledge all those things. Don't ignore it. But now put it in the box, literally close the box, take it out to the garbage and get rid of it. And then, it's not quite that simple for a lot of things, but that's what you have to do. And I think going forward with gratitude and changing your attitude permanently, you do have to acknowledge all that crap, but you can't keep it in the house. You can't keep the stink, and you can't keep looking at it because it will permanently stink up your house.
Correct.
So,
yeah. And, I think the bottom line is, would be a great experiment, and I think I will do it, just like I did Sober October, is you have to write it down. I mean, you can exercise gratitude and build it like going to the gym. That part, I think, is quite clear.
Did you read some studies, though, about as far as
they talked about that
different
and
outcomes?
You need to do it for several months to really notice a significant difference.
Just like anything else, imagine that.
And then I was thinking of okay, why wouldn't you do it? Okay, because it's not like you're taking a medication where, your blood pressure is too high, you take a blood pressure medicine and then you can't get it up. That would be bad. That would be a bad thing. So that may make you reticent to take the medication.
It's bad for some people.
Well, yeah.
Some people might find
sometimes
there's some gratitude in that.
Yes, that's true. We have heard that.
It all depends
right?
what lenses you're looking through in the world.
Right. It's like the guy that goes to the doctor. He has this terminal illness. The doctor says to him, okay, I need to talk to your wife first. He brings the wife into the room. He says, look, this is a terminal illness, but if you have sex with him every single day of the week, he will survive just the normal lifespan. So the wife leaves the room, sits down with her husband. He's just kind of breaking down. He looks at his wife and says, "What did the doctor say?" And she said, "I'm sorry, honey. He said you're going to die." So, yes.
Notice I'm not laughing that much because I've heard that joke. So
You've
many
never heard that
times.
before. So at any rate, I think, what's the downside? And, I was thinking about this. What is the downside to trying this? And the answer is, I don't want to be able to not fight things that I think need to be fought. And that's really what got me. Is like, if I'm just sort of blithely happy, am I going to be not recognizing, sort of the mission that we have to, to fight this nonsense that's going on around us? And I is it going to make you kind of the wimpy sort of,
So
that
you think
literally,
you're
I
going to
thought
become
that.
like Mr. Rogers and just be? I'm trying to think of someone else.
Even though Mr. Rogers was I think he was a World War II vet and was a total badass in actuality, but that's besides the
He's
point.
probably not the best example. I probably think of someone like Mike Brady, who always just seems super happy. Mr. Brady.
From the Brady Bunch?
Yeah.
And yes, and then he went and
They were syrupy, sappy, happy all the time. Is that what you mean?
Yes, and then he went to bathhouses and got HIV. So yes, the backstory sometimes is kind of nasty. But and I sit there and I go, well, that is just a weird thing. Like, to think of the potential downside that I won't recognize sort of right and wrong, or what should, because certain things should make you angry. And so I was like, that's just the BS.
Yeah, well,
thing.
here I'm looking at some of the recommendations. Now I'm reading this from the psychiatric medical care page, where they talk about gratitude versus Thanksgiving, and they, really refer to gratitude as being content physically and mentally with the state of your life. So you don't always have to be happy, but you can still, practice gratitude, and so that it really is important.
But that's interesting, because contentment is a little bit scary to me. And I guess that's what I'm getting at. Wasn't just, sort of the fighter instinct. It's contentment. Because does that mean you're going to get soft? I mean,
so you look at it as settling. Is that what you mean? You're settling,
right?
Content, as in there's no forward growth.
Yeah, exactly. Like ultimately, everyone really, their goal in, personal finance and in vacations and all of these things that we live for is contentment, right? And there's actually a Bible verse about it. Godliness with contentment is great gain. What comes first is the godliness, the contentment comes later. But it's interesting, because when you look at it from a sort of a warrior perspective, the sports analogy, every single super duper successful person tells you the same thing. Like, I remember when we interviewed Steve Torrance, and he had just won his fourth, Top Fuel Dragster World Championship in the NHRA, like the pinnacle of that sport. And he said, losing hurts way more than winning feels good. And I've heard that over and over again, press conferences after the Super Bowl, et cetera, et cetera. These guys that have won and won and won. And it's like, yeah, the winning's great. But really what drives us is we hate losing. And so,
well, I would, agree with that, of course. But what I'm really getting from what they're saying is that, and they do say, gratitude is your decision that the day is going to be good, even when evidence points to the opposite. So when crap happens, you're late for work, you're in a traffic jam, you spill your coffee, and things seem like they're messed up, instead of getting all huffy, freaking out, wanting to do like road rage out, and letting it.
Why are you looking at me when you say the word road rage?
I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. Let you put it out there to the universe.
But it does. And I think this is what gives me pause. This is what gives me pause. Just let me
finish, and then you could pause. So the fact that you're going to switch things up and say, okay, this all sucks, but you know what? I have a car, didn't get in a crash. I still have pants to wear. I don't know. Spinning it so that you can then get on with your day, and then turn it into more productivity, positive things. People want to be surrounded by positive people, not grumpy bastard Tim. So
I don't know. I think they find Grumpy Bastard Tim
they probably
quite
they
engaging.
find him quite entertaining. But it's like putting a spin on things. You know how we start to get grumpy with this house sale. So we're selling our house. Things aren't. It's an up and down emotional roller coaster, exactly like our realtor said it was going to be. And we've never sold a house before. Yes, we are first time house selling natives. Anyway,
Yes.
it has been sucky to say the least. So what happens is
57-year-old real estate virgins.
frustrated, and we can turn into both like whiny little child people. And then we kind of look at each other and laugh and say, well, first world problems. I mean, we have this beautiful house. So say we get stuck with it longer, or we have to live here. I think it really helps shape your attitude so that you can keep going forward. It doesn't mean that you're going to stagnate.
Yeah, I think the thing that I want to see happen, because this really struck me, and again, it's kind of hocusy pocusy science, but it's super interesting, which is the personality types and heart disease. So from way back in medical school, they talked about the type A personality and how, type A personalities are way more driven, way more focused, and have more heart disease. And there was this unbelievably interesting study. This was back in the 50s, I think, 50s or early 60s. And this psychologist was interviewing people and came up with the kind of the concept of the type A and the type B personality. And it was really, really interesting, because then they looked at it and they go, okay, well, these people seem to be, they're successful, materially more successful because they're driven, they work hard, they have all this, whatever, but they tend to die sooner. But then what they did is they looked at it but it didn't work for all of the type A personalities. It only worked for some of them. And so what they did is, years later, somebody looked at this and they went, well, maybe it's like cholesterol, because there's some people with super high cholesterol that basically never get heart attacks. And that's because if you measure the total cholesterol and you don't fractionate it, it's the fractionated part that makes the difference. So people with really high HDL cholesterol have what they called longevity syndrome, like not dying is a disease. Thank you, modern medicine and big pharma. You are great. Seriously, longevity syndrome. But if you had super high LDL and very low density lipids, et cetera, those people got heart attacks and strokes at earlier ages. So somebody fractionated personality. They went back and they said, is there like a thing that you bring out? So they literally went and got these 4-track recordings from the 50s or early 60s and listened to the interviews of the type A personalities. And it was fascinating. Whether you were type A personality and really driven and really focused and all that, that didn't matter. What mattered was your hostility index.
Ah.
So the people that had a high hostility index, in other words, the guy that cuts you off in traffic doesn't cut you off in traffic because he had a bad day and his mother just died and he's driving home from the hospital and he's weeping. Okay. He cut you off because he's an asshole trying to destroy your day. If that's how you interpret human interaction with other people, that is a high hostility index, and that kills you, which is fascinating, because sometimes all I have is a hostility index.
Well, I would say that the hostility index is inversely proportional to the gratitude index, because
and that's why this fascinates me, because I want to,
not a new term, but you're right. So I don't think anything's changed. I think just like now, we're supposed to, instead of, we would say, be aware of your surroundings or pay attention to what you're eating. Now they just call it mindfulness. It's the new word, which kind of drives me crazy, the whole mindfulness thing.
Let's unpack mindfulness.
And
other words that make me throw up in my mouth, because I've heard them way too many times.
Yes. So I think
it's not health, it's wellness.
Pushing the concept of gratitude now is really just a way of saying, dial down that hostility index, quit being an angry bastard, be more thankful for what you have. But it just sounds better.
Yeah, no, I think I will try this with, a journal. And
Now,
You know,
here's some other key points that I want to bring
I'll
up.
see if my hostility index, and here's the thing. So if you focus on gratitude with regards to relationships, is that going to be make you're like,
oh, I can tell you what they're, yeah, absolutely. So
does it matter what you're thankful for?
First of all, like we've talked about first, thankfulness fades. You know, you forget that feeling when you bought that new Gucci handbag. I don't know what that's like because I never bought one, but the new fresh car smell, the new leather interior, that sensation of your brand new purchase that just made you over the top.
I'm thankful for that cow so that my Corvette seats are more comfortable.
That fades, whereas gratitude, which can begin as thankfulness, should stay as a permanent thing. Gratitude also does deepen our interconnections. So thankfulness is more external, you know, when something happens, whereas gratitude is our sort of your internal voice, trying to remain positive and appreciative. And then the other thing is thankfulness is about, you know, the present interaction, and gratitude really does affect your long-term relationships with people more. And it's this one I struggled with a little bit. You can be sort of thankful that someone in your family does something, but I think gratitude is more like it's kind of like versus love, a more permanent.
Well, I think if it's different between like and love, or truly loving somebody in what we would consider the biblical sense, then it's very volitional. Then you're choosing to do something. You know, when something happens that makes you happy, it makes you happy, or it makes you thankful. Yeah. Whereas gratitude, you decide to practice.
Correct.
And that's what I want to do, because honestly, after all this COVID stuff, and after how unbelievably angry I have been at how a lot of this has been handled, like, it is really hard not to be sort of in hyper acute warrior mode all the time. And that is not a place that you want to live.
No. And especially,
but at the same time, I want to still have enough, you know, balls to call bullshit on all the crap that's going on so it doesn't happen again.
Well, I would say that having and practicing gratitude isn't castrating. It is actually, although it can maybe seem like that, or you're afraid that it is, I think it empowers you more to put out positive, I hate all those she words, but the positive energy, positive vibes. You surround yourself with people that are attracted to you when you have a positive attitude, and you can still have a kick-ass attitude, but with gratitude, and recognize those things that have like irritated you to spur you forward, but still be grateful and and going forward.
Well, we have seen this. We've seen this too.
And you which is the channel difference, that anger, frustration, right, but still temper it with gratitude.
Well, it's interesting because the key to the kingdom is to be a happy warrior. So it's to not slouch on calling, you know, BS when you need to, but at the same time be a happy warrior. And that's kind of my only real criticism of Jordan Peterson. The guy, I mean, his insights are just so erudite. It really is mind-blowing, the level of wisdom, but he just kind of seems pissed off all the time. And so
right,
it tempers the message, right? I mean, it's kind of like Trump doing great things with the trade war with China, which I initially thought was a crazy idea, but it seemed to work, and economic policy and all that. But at the same time, you can't call like a woman, even if you don't like her, a fat pig because you're running for president, you dumbass. So like, you know, and we've met some people in the last 2 years that have been absolutely the happy warrior. And it is really, really encouraging. And so that's kind of my goal.
Well, here's another
personally, because they're so attractive. They're like, no, I absolutely 100% think that, you know, this and this and this is wrong, and we need to fight for this, but they're not jerks about it. And it really is amazing, because there's going to be a lot of people that are changing their minds on stuff that's happened in the last 2 years. And it is way more important going forward for the health of the world on how you win, on how the winner perceives and welcomes, quote, the loser. I mean, if you look at the single most important event in the 20th century was World War I, and really probably the most salient event in that entire 4 years of conflict was the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles was so unbelievably egregious to the Germans that it made World War II happen. Okay, so it was much, and I'm not saying you let people off the hook when you vanquish the opponent, but you can't win bad. You have to win good. And I have seen stuff in some of our COVID groups where it's like, and I've said it myself, the swinging from lampposts. There's people that need to be held accountable, but it's really hard going to an airport and seeing people wearing masks and not going, man, you really are a sheep and part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, you still can have a warrior-like attitude with practicing gratitude. This makes me think of the whole situation in our spiritual life with faith versus action. I really am a person of faith that I think God has I know God has a plan and it's all laid out and it's for good. Sometimes I might not feel that way and it might not be how I would plan out the situation, but I know that since I'm living my life for God, that he's got me covered, which helps me, my attitude to not stress and worry about things so much anymore and be a control freak because I am a type 1 on the Enneagram personality, etc., type A. So now I really try to live by faith, but that doesn't mean I don't do anything. Like I just sit back and say, "Well, I have faith, therefore I don't have to."
No, I think it just means you do different
have any
things.
Volition. So therefore, I think gratitude is that much that way. That it doesn't mean it has to stifle your passion. And when you think of gratitude giving you contentment, Tim, it doesn't mean that you just have to say, "I'm grateful for these things, therefore I don't need to be more."
I'm grateful that I'm not as big of a dick as the guy that just cut me off.
No, but you
see,
it means
an
you don't have to
attitude
say,
of gratitude.
Yeah. So it's not like I'm content with how things are, therefore I don't need to pursue pushing forward and making positive changes ahead. Not at all. But I think most of the world in the US has this always achieving more materialistic goods and achieving more, whether it's at work or wanting your kid to achieve more at sports. It's always about the next level. Achieve. What can we get?
Well,
what can we acquire? Instead of going, hello, look at what I have. Look at who I have surrounded with. It could be much worse. It could be shitty. Look at how other people have it. Look what other people don't have. Am I grateful for all this stuff that I've been working for or what we've got?
Well, right, but it's fascinating because when you think of this politically, the next level is one of the most toxic things in the entire world. The fact that it needs to go to the next level. So if you're a progressive and you're a Teddy Roosevelt progressive from the turn of, the last century, right? And it's like, national parks are a good idea. The United States should own some pieces of that are really beautiful that never get developed commercially. Probably not a bad idea. Okay. So then that was a progressive idea. Okay. But if you're going to continue to be a progressive, the progress can never end, but it has to end. Okay. So we have women voting about 100 years ago, women's suffrage, probably a good idea. Okay. So women can be equal in the workplace, probably a good idea. Okay. Well, homosexuals, that behavior is shouldn't be illegal. Probably a good idea. But now we have, hormone therapy for 11-year-olds because they think they're the opposite sex. Because you still have to, progress can never end because you're a progressive. Well, no, it needs to end.
I'm not tracking what this has got to do with gratitude.
It's just this whole idea of the next level, and that if you're grateful for what you have, it does blunt that next shiny thing, which is probably really helpful, right? It's like capitalism. What happened?
I don't think it has to blunt it. Why would it blunt it?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that is a profoundly good thing, right? It's like if you look at the other political side, right?
Like I have two. I'm grateful for the 2 kids I have. Yeah, no, I don't want any more. But
right,
but that doesn't mean if I'm grateful for my fitness, I'm not going to work out anymore.
Well, no, because you know what it takes to sustain that, and that, but okay, let's do the fitness thing. Okay. There is definitely people in the bodybuilding world that what is the end game? Is it a 29-inch waist and a 46-inch chest?
I
If
think
you're somebody my
that's a
size.
totally different.
Well,
I think that isn't even the same thing. Gratitude isn't the same as goals and
right. But what I'm saying
achievements.
is that part of gratitude is what the goal is contentment. Okay. And the fact is that we have these unbelievably factious sort of political entities because there's zero contentment, right? Like, it's not, okay, we have equal rights for gays. We're done with the sexual progress. Nope, you can't, because you're progressive. It's just like the capitalism side, right? It's like, okay, you have a great business, you're paying your employees fairly well, your stockholders are reasonably happy, but guess what? They're not going to stay happy unless you have 10% growth every single year. So it never ends.
Right. But I think it's a pendulum. It's not an all or nothing. It's a balance. And so there's times for the gratitude so that you can dial it back. And then there's other times when you're right. You have to have progression, goals at the next level. So I think what you're saying is we're saying kind of opposite things of the spectrum, in that some people need to dial it back, be thankful for things, look at the positive side. But yes, there are times when you actually have to move forward. You have goals and things you want to advance yourself, get better at, move forward. You can't just sit back and say, okay, I'm grateful, I'm content, I'm done. But there's definitely
right. Well,
a lot more reflecting people need to do.
And I think in that journey, there's a tremendous of contentment. It brings out other things. It's just like, okay, I'm really content with this part of my life. Well, it brings out other parts that you're maybe not as content with, that you can work on, and you can be thankful that you saw that, you have other parts to work on. I think but it's super interesting because we've built in the Western world, the entire Western world is really built on not being content, because the only way you can push the economic engine to ever grow infinity is if you have discontent.
Right. Well, look at the health of the Western world. So maybe if we sat back and were a little more grateful, that some of us wouldn't blow up from our hostility on the freeway, not have heart attacks, and not have to glutton ourselves with food, drink, and football.
Yeah, well, be careful.
I'm blowing up this holiday.
Yeah, no, but
very quickly.
It's super interesting because we're literally just at least I am fleshing this out in real time on this podcast, because that's the key, right? Like, the 10th commandment in the 10 commandments is not coveting. Well, the entire Western economic system is built on coveting, because if you're content with your 1955 Chevy that you bought in 1955, then you don't need a 56 or a 60 or a 66 or a,
right.
It's when you think of it, it's really fascinating. So, so
I think as we go into this next phase of life and we're trying to downsize and look at all that we have stuffed away in our home, garage, and property, we start to not Joanna Gaines. What's her name? Marie Kondo it all. What do we really need? What gives us joy? What are we grateful for?
Cars.
And get rid of crap. There we go. So let's talk about ways that you can practice gratitude, if you still believe after this conversation that it's important to do.
Well, yeah, no, I think if you believe any of the evidence in these, you just write it down. Well, so you get up in the morning, you think about it, and you write it down. And the thing that was really interesting, I read this one article, is this guy, he was doing his PhD in gratitude, believe it or not, like as a psychology degree, and his mother passed away, and he, she was quite young, and he just said, well, I guess I got to practice what I'm studying. And he's like, it didn't make any difference initially. And he said it actually, in some respects, made the grief way more real, because he's like, wow, I was really thankful I had a great mom. Oh my gosh, I don't have my mom anymore.
Mhm.
You know, so
Right, because you're actually really thinking about things on a
Right.
lot deeper level instead of stuffing it away.
But what was really interesting is after a few weeks, it definitely made a difference. It really helped this guy heal. And then when he would go back months later and look and see what he had written down and how much deeper, how much more in the moment he was with what he was grateful for months later. You know, it kind of started with these bigger things. You know, I'm thankful that I have food to eat. I'm
Right,
thankful that I
right.
have a house. And then it became really specific and really kind of that day. You know, I'm thankful that I got to work out and it was sunny and it didn't rain,
Mhm,
which
mhm.
is really interesting because I think what so many of us struggle with as far as anxiety and just worries and so forth is we're just out of time. We're not living in the moment. We're living for the, well, what if our house doesn't sell? Or, well, what if this job doesn't work out? Or, you know, what if I get cancer? Or what? Well, you have zero, you only have limited control over any of these things.
Right. If you're living for the what ifs, that just provokes anxiety. And so according to this, the Johns Hopkins, the positive attitude, gratitude, journaling, gratitude practice really does lessen the risk for depression, and anxiety, because you're not honed in on the negatives, but more on the positives. So starting a gratitude journal, which you said was shown to be the best way by actually writing it down, is the number one way. You can do it on your computer. You can put it in your little note section on a tablet or your phone, or you could do the old-fashioned way with some pretty colored pens and journal books and scribble and doodle and all that stuff, whatever inspires you. They recommend doing 3 things. So pick 3 things that you're thankful for, grateful for, and do it daily. You can, always write more, but try to focus on 3 things. And it's fascinating because it's always been that way. When I look at gratitude journals or hear this stuff talked about, they always mention 3 things. I don't know what's specific about 3, but it seems to be the magic number. You can also begin a meditation practice. So for a lot of people, this can be at night. This can be in the morning. And mindfulness and gratitude go hand in hand now. For some people, this means prayer time, not crazy, funny noises like that. Or it can be. Some people, I'm trying to remember what they call that when you have an actual sound. There is a name for it. When you create a repetitive sound that helps people meditate and focus and disassociate from the surroundings, so that you're not looking at this. I'm always like, crumbs, I gotta start to vacuum and I get distracted.
I think it's called weirdo.
No, it has a name, so it helps people
Yeah, it does.
not lose their
Weirdo.
train of thought. Because I'll sit there and I'm like, my foot's itching. I really could use a cup of coffee. Oh, I forgot to mail that stuff at the post office. So beginning a meditation practice or prayer time, just setting aside that time daily, 10 minutes at a time. Another way is signing up to volunteer somewhere and going and helping. Christmas time is coming up. It's always a good time to help get involved with things, as well as there's all kinds of things to do. But I think it really helps people just feel more grateful when you're volunteering. Oftentimes it's those that are less fortunate situations. So it really does help you look at your own life. Spending time with family and loved ones. Maybe you do need to reconnect with someone. Just helps you think of, hopefully, the positives more than the negatives. And giving away to others is number 5 on the list, Tim. So they recommend finding things in your home that you no longer use and donate them to a charity in need. We all have items lying around the house that cause clutter we don't use any longer, and you can clear it out and brighten someone else's day by giving away those NASCAR t-shirts or a couple of Harley shirts to someone that really likes Harleys and just can't afford to buy one.
Well, they shouldn't have the shirt if they can't afford a Harley. Then they're just a poser. And I would never.
Do we really need to have 50 of something in our collection?
No, because we actually need 60.
Always pursuing more things.
I mean, hello.
So
Do you think
I
I'm
wanted
dense?
to weave this into the conversation about clearing out the clutter as we're trying to do so at this phase in our life. And
She's very manipulative.
you're doing manipulative. Hey, you're doing really well clearing out the clutter. You know, all the photos we went through this year, all the books we had. I wouldn't call them clutter, but man, we had a lot of books. Anyone needs some books, let us know. Now on to his t-shirt collection, coat collection, shoe collection, hat collection.
Yeah.
You're a good collector.
Of some things.
So maybe you'll have some gratitude, Tim, if you begin to give some of those away. Think about it. Gratitude really is something I hope you'll think about more this Thanksgiving. And if you're sitting around at the table and happen to listen to this podcast on Thanksgiving Day, maybe you guys could discuss that, what you're thankful for, but also what you're grateful for and how you're going to practice gratitude this year.
Yeah,
Something to think about.
I mean, this has actually been really instructive just discussing this with you, because I think the key, at least for me, is really, I would like to see two things change. I would like to have less of a hostility index, and I would like to be, more content. And I'm really not discontented by any stretch of the imagination. But the last couple of years for all of us, and specifically with some of the stuff that May and I have gone through, has been to like, it's just like, okay, enough already is kind of how it feels. It doesn't mean that people haven't gone through way worse stuff than us, but this was a real, lost my mother, couldn't go to her funeral because of all the COVID BS in Canada. The week before, lost our dog in a horrific accident, changing jobs.
Lost another pet, lost a family member that moved away out of the country. That's a big upheaval.
Yeah, I mean, it just
family stuff. Life goes on.
Exactly.
And when you're you're
on.
a personality that's used to controlling things, and you lose control of so many things at once, I know that it causes a lot of angst and that feeling where you want to be able to control things going further when you can't in this situation. It's easy to get angry.
So we have been
on things,
and this is, we'll tie this up. I was going to say some really funny stuff, or attempt to, but we'll save that for another podcast, because we're coming up to the hour mark.
Your big cornucopia, my horn of plenty,
my horn of plenty. The horn of plenty will be unleashed with almost violent rage. It will be so great. But the thing is, this is, we have been on this journey the last year or so with experimenting with different diets and seeing what that does, and then experimenting with different workouts and seeing what that does. And it's been really rewarding. Okay. Really rewarding. And we've actually practiced what we've discussed, as far as, low carb diet, hormone therapies, like all of this stuff that we've talked about, we actually do it. And the stuff that we, people that sponsor us, we do it because we like their products and we use them. So that it's all the same, dovetails. But at the same time, if you're going to do probably the single greatest thing for your mental health, which is exercise, why not add, other disciplines that are not difficult, like gratitude journals, etc.
Oh, you mentioned earlier about
that can really help.
And I think people just think it's, one more thing they have to do, one more thing they have to add to their day. And that's the big stumbling block people throw in there. I'm really bad for that, because I like to get up in the morning, have my coffee like you. We like to read in our library, and that's when I like to do my Bible reading and prayer time. But I can get distracted, or I can talk myself out of it, just like people do with exercise, or the reasons why you don't stick to your healthy eating lifestyle. So sorry to cut you off, but I was just thinking, we can all put out reasons.
Siri, you can take the girl out of Canada, but you can't take the Canada out of the girl, can you?
Are we gonna have that? We have to wrap up the other debate. Forget the word Siri. How about the iron versus iron?
No, it's iron.
If you were watching,
it's not hard.
If you were watching our socials this week, we had a really fun weekend that we just got back from Arizona. I think Tim won the debate.
No, I crushed you.
You need to enunciate
It was
all your
shock
vowels and
and
consonants.
awe.
It's iron because you have, as I say, you don't say, you say IRAN is Iran, IRUN is Iran, and IRON is Iran. So let's leave it at that.
Yes. So I think we'll wrap this up. I really enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful for you, or at least as helpful as it was for me, because this really has revisiting the whole concept of the hostility index, I think, is really important, because that's an easy thing to see in other people and not necessarily an easy thing to see in yourself.
For your own health, you want to get rid of that hostility index.
Yeah, but there is a lot of assholes out there. And they all just need hostility.
That doesn't.
They're begging
that
for
doesn't
hostility.
attract very. Yeah, that doesn't attract friends. Hostile behavior and a cranky attitude.
Aren't they
also doesn't attract very many friends. So if you don't want friends and you want to blow your life up early, just be a cranky old bastard.
Aren't they just begging for my hostility?
Take it out on a punching bag. Oh well. Okay. So remember this. Our 100th episode is coming out next week. And I think we pretty much covered everything. Anything else you want to say?
Well, other than we were going to talk about what we're actually thankful for, and I was going to talk about the fact that I'm thankful for yoga pants, but we will leave the yoga pants. We will leave the yoga pants alone. We'll use it as a teaser, because let's be honest, yoga pants are a gigantic teaser in some situations. And we will unpack, I hate that word, yoga pants at some other time.
You're going to leave us hanging.
Well, if you're wearing yoga pants, nothing would be hanging.
All right. On that note, go stuff yourself. Have a great day. See Santa at the Macy's parade. Watch some football, and we will see you next week.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
But we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.